Hello, and welcome to a special bonus episode for the Season 2 finale of Our Family's True Tales of the Supernatural. I wanted to add an extra bonus episode to round out this season of the show, and so we could go out with a bang. I can also tell you that I've gotten more proficient at making videos and editing them. What used to take me a week to make now only takes about 2 or 3 days. So I wanted to make this episode to give you folks some updates on a few different things. First of all, I'd like to update you folks on the paranormal activity around the house where I live. I grounded myself a couple of times in the months of November and December of 2025. There were a small number of warm days and I walked outside with no shoes on and I grounded my bare feet on the ground. Once I grounded myself, the weekly appearances of shadow figures greatly decreased. I haven't noticed any shadow figures since November of 2025. I thought I saw a couple of quick glances out of the corner of my eyes a couple of times, but that was all I noticed. I would see things out of the corner of my eye as I sat at our dining room table. That type of incident has become very rare. Here's the second item I'd like to update you on. I noticed that in late December of 2025 and early January of 2026, I saw the lamp in my bedroom turn on by itself again. I examined it to make sure nothing was leaning against it to ground it, and there wasn't anything touching it at all. So I know it wasn't an issue with my replica sword touching it as it had been the case in the past. Yet the light still came on by itself a couple of different times. These days I try to be respectful and kind to any spirits that might be lingering around so I don't annoy them. So I try to kindly tell them that they can visit for a short while if they're feeling nostalgic. I also try to tell them that if they are stuck here, I can pray that God will open a door for them to move into a peaceful afterlife. So I usually pray for that sort of thing right on the spot. The activity usually dies down right after I do that. I also saw another video on the internet where another person noticed the same thing, and they did the same thing too. They said that they prayed that God would open a door for the spirits to move on to a peaceful afterlife. That person said that every time they did that, it caused most of the problems to go away. Any remaining issues become much more calm in most cases. At least it does when you're respectful. So I feel a bit more confident when I see other people do the same thing and get identical good results. Right now, let's move on to another issue I'd like to update you folks on, and I'll give you the details on that situation. So here's our third update. I have noticed that the paranormal activity in the house I've been renovating has greatly decreased, but not fully stopped. I noticed in early February as I worked with my coworker Ed, I saw a pale figure walk across a room. I was assisting Ed as he worked on a light fixture in the foyer at the front door. As I stood there, ready to give Ed any tools or parts he needed, I saw the pale figure. My back was to the front door, and I could see out the corner of my eye a pale figure walk across the rear dining room in the back of the house. It looked similar to the pale figure I saw run across the hallway in the past. I had previously seen it run across the hallway right where I was standing, yet now I was standing there and seeing it walk across the back of the house in the dining room. I walked over to the dining room and kitchen area, but didn't see anyone at all. There shouldn't have been anyone there anyway, because it was only Ed and I working there that day. So there shouldn't have been anyone else there in the house at all. Ed and I had already discussed this in the past and agreed that if the ghosts weren't violent, we would keep working. I can tell you that I haven't seen any severely destructive behaviors from these ghosts, so we're continuing to work there. We recently had a building inspector tell us to fix some things a bit better, so we're stuck doing more work that makes us take a lot more time. So this has ended up as a long-term project. I've wondered if I should have a talk with these ghosts, but they come and go so fast that I can't tell if they care to listen or not. Yet they haven't been destructive, so I have no reason to say anything harsh in return. I also don't sense the need to have a serious talk with them. I figured that since it was their house, I didn't want to say anything harsh. I also spoke to them once before and prayed for God to open a door to heaven for them to go into the afterlife. So I wondered if they visit sometimes merely because they feel nostalgic and want to see their old house. Now I'll move on to update number 4. I recently had to have a coworker live in the addition to our house due to domestic violence from other family members. I wanted to help them so they could have a reasonable life that's a bit more free from conflict and so they could hold on to their sanity. This was one of my coworkers named Randy, who has seen some of the same paranormal activity I've seen. On the date of March 5th of 2026, he had gone fishing at a pond on our property and he saw more paranormal activity. Here's the story he relayed to me. He said as he stood near the bank of the pond, he saw something out of the corner of his eye. Just to his right, he saw someone stick out their hand and drop a blade of grass into the pond. He then turned to see who it was, and he couldn't see anyone there. He immediately knew it had been paranormal activity, yet he also told me that sometimes his eye twitches if the paranormal activity comes with bad intent. Yet he didn't sense anything like that, but only sensed good intentions. I then told Randy how I seemed to resolve the problem at our house. I mentioned that I prayed for God to open a doorway for the spirits to move on into heaven. I didn't have any problems after that. I had one that seemed to show up one more time and smile as if he was thankful that I prayed for him. It seemed like he might have been nostalgic about his old home where he used to live. I also mentioned that I grounded myself sometimes, and that keeps the activity low as well. I also mentioned that I told the spirits that if they feel nostalgic, they could look around the home, but just refrain from scaring people, moving objects, or getting violent. Ever since that time, I haven't had much of any problems. So now I'd like to update you on some other things that I've been researching for Season 3 of the show. If you remember back in Season 1, Episode 11, I talked about how I had some type of a near-death experience, or NDE. Well, I've done a bit of research into the subject and found some more interesting information. I've seen some shows on YouTube podcast interviews with several people who had NDEs. Some of these episodes had several people who had an NDE, and the whole group discussed the experiences and things that they learned. The interview included 3 guests plus the host of the show. All of the guests mentioned that they eventually had other types of paranormal encounters in their life since they had their NDE. They all agreed that they had seen ghosts and spoken to them. They even mentioned that they had other types of paranormal encounters. I'll talk more about that in the next season of the show. I can also say that researchers who studied NDEs have found that there's more than one standard type of NDE. They have now found that they typically fall into 3 different types of categories. Here's the categories and the details involved in each one of the 3 categories. 1. The first type of NDE is where a person seems to be clinically dead and they see some type of an afterlife. 2. The second type of NDE is where a person either has a dream of the afterlife or they get knocked out and have a vision of the afterlife. 3. The third type of NDE is called a group death experience or a shared death experience. This might consist of a group of people who gather around a dying loved one, and they all see the loved one's spirit step out of their body and walk away. In other cases, people gather around a loved one and the whole room glows and the person's spirit steps out of their body. This can also be accompanied by other glowing spirits walking up to the deceased person's spirits, and they all walk away together. As they walk away, they seem to fade away into the light. Then the brightly glowing room starts to dim, and it goes back to its normal lighting level. There have been many documented cases like this, where all the people in the room give testimony about seeing these types of details, and they all agree that they saw the same thing. I think the NDE I had was a type 2 NDE, where I had a dream, but I'm not 100% sure if I died or not. I couldn't tell if it was a mere dream or if I actually died. You see, at the time, I had extremely high cholesterol levels. I had my cholesterol levels checked sometime later, and the doctor gave me a very stern warning. The doctor told me that if I didn't stop eating fast food hamburgers, I'd be dead within 2 years. So I cut back on eating fast food burgers, and I took pills to get my cholesterol a lot lower. I have no solid evidence that I died that night, or if I visited heaven, had a vivid dream, or if I had some type of vision. All I can do is tell you what I saw and experienced. So there's a lot of twists and turns in my life's story. You'll see a lot more of these twists and turns in the next season of the show. I can also tell you that some of season 1 isn't in chronological order that those things happened. I think my NDE happened first, and that led to all those other things happening. Shortly after that was when I started seeing paranormal activity. A short time after that, I started seeing other types of paranormal incidents that I'll be putting in season 3. There were many different types of events I saw and experienced. You'll likely understand what I'm talking about when you see it in season 3. So at this time, I'll refresh your memory and show you some of the things I saw when I had an NDE. As you might recall, I had what seemed like a dream that was like a science fiction movie. I flew a big spaceship faster than light and went across the galaxy to map it out. As I got back to Earth, I got a message to report to a secret facility where they were conducting teleportation experiments. I was to be the first person teleported with their newly built teleportation machine. So at this time, let me play a clip from season 1, episode 11, to illustrate what I saw. This is what I saw when I was teleported to heaven. So let's go ahead and play that clip right now.
I stood up and I could see what seemed like an enormous white room that stretched as far as the eye could see. Even the white floor seemed to extend as far as the eye could see. I couldn't see any walls in any direction. It seemed like there was a white ceiling, but I couldn't tell how high it was. All I could see was white in the background, so I couldn't even tell how high the ceiling was. I noticed that there were several groups of people all around me. The groups were different sizes. Some were groups of 2 or 3. Some groups had maybe a dozen or a few dozen. These groups of people looked like they had been having conversations with each other, yet now they had looks of concern as if they were wondering if I was okay or not. I looked to my right to see that guy who had helped me put on my robe, and he was glowing a golden color. I wondered if he was an angel, but I didn't ask. I looked off into the distance, which seemed like 200 or 300 feet away, which would be about 70 to 100 meters. I saw something that seemed like a large, bright light. It was the only bright, shining object that was still too bright for me to clearly see. My robe couldn't filter that light all that much, but it didn't hurt to look into that light. I then considered that I might be in heaven or that I was seeing a vision of heaven. I also considered that the bright light in the distance might be God. I thought to myself that I should try to be on my best behavior, be nice, and say hello to God, if it was God. I then smiled, waved my hand, and said hello to God. I then heard a mellow yet loud booming voice echo back saying, "Hello, my son, I love you." I stood in awe, and I was speechless when I heard him respond to me that way. The glowing person next to me then told me, "You're loved, accepted, and welcome in this place." I was also told that I was always welcome there and that they would welcome me back in the future. He then told me that the people who sent me there were trying to bring me back. He then told me I should take the special robe off so they could bring me back. I took another long gaze around the place so I could see as much as I could see. Then I figured I saw all that I could see, so I attempted to take off the robe by pulling it over my head. I then noticed the stark beaming light.
So that's what I saw when I had my NDE. I've done a bit of research into NDEs since then, and I've found some interesting information. I've even found a reputable and respected Christian theologian who also agrees that NDEs are true and authentic. That theologian is Dr. Gary Habermas, who teaches at Liberty University. I've even seen him in videos on YouTube saying that he agrees NDEs are valid and authentic. He says that he knows someone who conducted a lot of research and has written a book and documented a lot of the research. I'm referring to Dr. John Hagen, who wrote the book, The Science of Near-Death Experiences. Many theologians didn't accept NDEs a few years ago in the 1990s, yet there's more acceptance of NDEs as authentic experiences these days because the evidence is starting to become overwhelming. Even science now backs up much of this research into NDEs. It's now becoming more obvious that NDEs are completely legitimate. Some of the things I'm presenting in the next season will need a bit of explaining, yet other people who had NDEs have seen similar things as I have, like various types of paranormal activity. You'll see what I mean when we get into the next season and I start explaining more of how this got started in my life. I'll also explain how other people who had an NDE have seen similar things. As for now, let me say that if you like this video, please click the thumbs up like button and leave a comment below. Tell me what you liked about the show, or if you have a legitimate question you'd like me to answer. Those things help the YouTube algorithms, and it helps other people find this channel and watch these videos. If you want an idea about what the next season will be about, you should go back and watch a couple of episodes. You should watch Season 1, episodes number 11 and 12. Those will give you a bit of a heads up on what Season 3 will include. Some of what I show might shock and surprise you. I'm sure it will be intriguing and interesting. I believe my audience will enjoy watching the episodes I'll be presenting. As for now, I can tell you that even if this stuff seems strange, I'm beginning to learn that it's quite normal and natural. Perhaps I should say it's a lot more common and natural than many people would initially consider it to be. So I don't know how long it'll take for me to start the next season of the show. Yet as for now, I hope to see you in Season 3 of the show. Goodbye for now.